The world will pull you in 1,000 directions, demanding your time, your energy, and your attention until you forget what truly matters. Focus is not found by chance. It is forged through discipline and conscious choice. To value yourself is to decide that your mind will not be scattered, your standards will not be compromised, and your purpose will not be diluted. When you learn to focus, you reclaim control over your thoughts, your habits, and your direction. Self-worth grows when actions are intentional, when effort is consistent, and when you stop living on reaction and begin living by principle, grounded in clarity, restraint, and inner strength. Eliminating distractions that drain your focus is a critical step in learning to value yourself, because focus is the foundation of self-respect and personal power. Every distraction you allow into your life is a decision about what deserves your attention. In a world engineered to steal focus, scattered attention has become normal, yet this scattering weakens clarity, productivity, and inner stability. Distractions are not only external, such as constant notifications, endless scrolling, or unnecessary conversations, but also internal, including overthinking, comparison, and emotional reactivity. Each distraction fragments the mind, pulling energy away from what truly matters. When focus is broken repeatedly, progress slows, confidence erodes, and purpose becomes unclear. Eliminating distractions begins with awareness. You must recognize what consistently pulls you away from your priorities and question whether it deserves access to your time and mental space. This awareness alone restores a sense of control. Focus is a skill, and like any skill, it requires training. Removing distractions is not about isolation or rigidity, but about intentional choice. When a person values themselves, they do not allow their attention to be consumed by things that offer no growth or meaning. Distraction often masquerades as relief. It promises comfort, escape, or entertainment, yet leaves behind restlessness and dissatisfaction. By resisting this false comfort, discipline is strengthened. Each time you choose focus over distraction, you reinforce your authority over your own mind. This authority builds confidence. Focus also deepens the quality of effort. When attention is fully present, tasks are completed with precision, learning accelerates, and progress becomes visible. This visible progress reinforces self-belief, creating a cycle of growth and discipline. Eliminating distractions also protects emotional energy. Constant exposure to noise, opinions, and comparison destabilizes the inner state. Reducing this exposure creates mental silence, and within silence, clarity emerges. Clarity allows deliberate action instead of reactive behavior. Distractions keep people busy but unfulfilled. Focus aligns action with intention. Time is the most valuable resource, and focus determines how it is spent. When distractions dominate, time is lost without return. When focus is protected, time becomes an investment. This shift changes how life is experienced. Focused living feels purposeful rather than rushed. It creates space for reflection, growth, and mastery. Distraction weakens self-trust because it reinforces inconsistency. Focus restores self-trust by proving that commitments can be honored. This self-trust is the basis of self-worth. Eliminating distractions also strengthens boundaries. Saying no to unnecessary demands is an act of self-respect. Not every message requires a response. Not every trend deserves attention. Focused individuals choose depth over breadth. They invest energy where it compounds. Over time, The ability to concentrate becomes a form of inner strength. It allows sustained effort, patience, and resilience. Focused people are less reactive, less influenced, and more grounded. Eliminating distractions is not a one-time act, but a daily practice. Each day presents choices between noise and clarity. By consistently choosing clarity, the mind becomes sharper, discipline becomes natural, and self-worth grows stronger, rooted in control, intention, and respect for one's own time and attention. Building self-worth through disciplined daily actions begins with understanding that self-worth is not a feeling that appears suddenly, but a result of repeated behavior aligned with self-respect. Many people wait to feel confident or motivated before taking action, but discipline works in the opposite direction. Action creates belief. When you show up for yourself consistently, even in small ways, you send a clear message to your mind that you are reliable and capable. Each disciplined action becomes evidence of your value, reinforcing trust in yourself. Discipline is not punishment or restriction, it is structure that supports growth. Daily actions such as maintaining routines, honoring commitments, and managing time intentionally create stability. This stability becomes the foundation of self-worth because it replaces chaos with control. When actions are inconsistent, self-image becomes unstable. When actions are disciplined, identity strengthens. Self-worth grows when effort is consistent, regardless of mood. Motivation fluctuates, but discipline remains steady. This steadiness builds resilience. A woman who acts with discipline does not abandon herself when things feel difficult. She continues to care for her responsibilities, her health, and her goals, even when comfort tempts her to retreat. This commitment deepens respect for the self. Discipline also sharpens awareness of priorities. By choosing intentional actions each day, distractions lose influence. Time is spent on what matters rather than on what is convenient. This alignment creates inner peace because actions reflect values. When values and behavior are aligned, guilt and self-doubt fade. Self-worth also strengthens through progress. Disciplined actions compound. Small habits practiced daily lead to visible improvement over time. This progress reinforces belief in personal ability. Confidence emerges naturally, not from comparison or praise, but from witnessing your own growth. Discipline also creates boundaries. It teaches you to say no to behaviors that undermine your energy or goals. Saying no to self-sabotage is an act of self-respect. Each refusal strengthens identity and reinforces worth. Daily discipline also builds emotional strength. It teaches patience, delayed gratification, and focus. These qualities allow calm decision-making and reduce impulsive behavior. When emotions are regulated through structure, inner stability increases. Self-worth thrives in stability. Discipline also changes self-talk. When actions align with intention, the inner voice becomes supportive rather than critical. Doubt loses its grip because there is consistent proof of effort. This proof is powerful. It replaces insecurity with assurance. Discipline also protects long-term vision. Without structure, goals remain ideas. With daily action, goals become realities. Each discipline step affirms that your future matters. Building self-worth through daily actions requires consistency, not intensity. Perfection is not required. Commitment is. Even imperfect effort, when repeated, strengthens identity. Over time, discipline becomes self-respect in action. It becomes the quiet confidence of knowing you are living in alignment with your standards. When daily actions reflect care, intention, and effort, self-worth is no longer questioned. because it is demonstrated through behavior, reinforced by consistency, and grounded in the certainty that you honor yourself through what you do each day. Stopping the search for validation and learning to respect yourself is a turning point that changes how you move through the world. Validation places your worth in the hands of others, making confidence unstable and dependent on approval. When self-respect replaces validation, strength becomes internal and unshakable. Seeking validation often begins subtly, through the need to be liked, praised, or acknowledged. Over time, this need shapes behavior, causing choices to be guided by how they will be perceived rather than by what is right or aligned. This creates inner conflict because the self becomes divided between authenticity and acceptance. Self-respect heals this division by anchoring worth within. Respecting yourself means honoring your values, boundaries, and standards, even when doing so brings discomfort or misunderstanding. It means choosing integrity over applause. Validation is temporary. It rises and fades quickly, leaving behind the need for more. Self-respect compounds. Each time you act in alignment with your values, confidence deepens. Respect is built through behavior, not affirmation. When actions reflect self-care, discipline, and honesty, the mind begins to trust the self. This trust removes the need to seek reassurance externally. Respecting yourself also requires emotional independence. Opinions will exist, judgments will be formed, and comparisons will arise. When validation is the goal, these external factors dictate emotional state. When self-respect is established, feedback is evaluated rather than absorbed. Useful insight is accepted, noise is dismissed. This discernment protects mental clarity. Self-respect also strengthens boundaries. A person who values themselves does not tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or manipulation. They do not over-explain their decisions or negotiate their worth. Saying no becomes natural rather than fearful. This firmness is not aggression, it is clarity. Respect for self removes the urge to prove value. Proving is exhausting. Being is sufficient. Validation seeking often leads to overgiving, over-explaining, and self-abandonment. Respect reverses this pattern. It encourages balance, reciprocity, and patience. Respecting yourself also changes how you relate to failure. When validation defines worth, failure feels like exposure. When self-respect defines worth, failure becomes feedback. Identity remains intact because it is not tied to outcome. This resilience allows growth without shame. Respect also quiets comparison. Validation thrives on comparison, measuring worth against others. Self-respect focuses inward, measuring progress against personal standards. This inward focus restores peace and direction. Respecting yourself means keeping promises to yourself, even small ones. Each promise kept strengthens trust. Each boundary honored reinforces dignity. Each moment of self-discipline builds authority over your own life. Over time, this authority replaces the desire to be approved of. Approval becomes optional rather than necessary. Respect also influences relationships. When you respect yourself, you attract healthier dynamics. You communicate clearly, expect consistency, and walk away from what compromises your values. There is less chasing, less anxiety, less emotional bargaining. Calm replaces urgency. Confidence replaces insecurity. Respecting yourself also requires silence at times. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Silence becomes strength when rooted in self-assurance. Validation demands reaction. Self-respect allows restraint. This restraint signals inner power. It reflects control over ego and emotion. As self-respect grows, identity stabilizes. There is no need to perform or impress. Actions become intentional rather than reactive. The need to be seen fades as the self becomes grounded in who it is and what it stands for, guided by values, consistency, and an unspoken certainty of worth that does not depend on recognition or approval. Protecting your time, energy, and attention is an act of self-valuation that determines the quality of your life and the strength of your inner world. Time is finite, energy is limited, and attention is powerful, yet many give all three away without intention. When these resources are unprotected, life becomes reactive, fragmented, and exhausting. Protecting them begins with recognizing their value. Every yes is a commitment, every distraction is a cost, and every unnecessary obligation is a withdrawal from your potential. A person who values themselves becomes selective, not selfish. Selectivity is clarity in action. It means choosing what deserves access to your presence and what does not. Time protection starts with priorities. Without clear priorities, time is consumed by urgency rather than importance. Protecting time requires the discipline to schedule what matters and the courage to say no to what does not align. Energy protection requires awareness of what drains you emotionally and mentally. Certain environments, conversations, and habits quietly exhaust the nervous system. When energy is depleted, focus weakens, patience shortens, and self-control fades. Guarding energy means reducing exposure to chaos, negativity, and constant stimulation. Attention protection is equally critical. Attention directs thought, and thought shapes identity. When attention is scattered across comparison, noise, and trivial input, inner clarity dissolves. Protecting attention restores presence. Presence allows depth, learning, and mastery. A focused mind experiences life fully rather than superficially. Protecting these resources also strengthens boundaries. Boundaries are not explanations, they are behaviors. When boundaries are weak, time and energy leak. When boundaries are firm, life becomes intentional. Protecting time means not responding immediately to everything. Protecting energy means not absorbing emotions that are not yours to carry. Protecting attention means choosing silence over noise when clarity is needed. This protection builds inner stability. Stability reduces anxiety and increases confidence. When resources are managed intentionally, the mind becomes calm and the body follows. Productivity improves not through pressure, but through clarity. Protecting time, energy, and attention also supports growth. Growth requires space. Without space, reflection is impossible. Without reflection, lessons are missed. By limiting unnecessary input and obligation, space is created for improvement, learning, and rest. Rest is not weakness, it is restoration. Restoration strengthens discipline. Discipline allows sustained effort without burnout. Protecting resources also changes self-identity. When you consistently protect what matters, you reinforce self-respect. This respect becomes internalized. You no longer feel guilty for prioritizing yourself because you understand the cost of neglect. Over time, others adjust to the standards you set. Those who respect you adapt. Those who benefit from your overextension may resist. Resistance reveals where boundaries are required. Protecting resources also sharpens decision-making. When time and energy are preserved, choices are made from clarity rather than fatigue. Fatigue leads to poor judgment. Clarity leads to alignment. Attention protection also reduces emotional reactivity. Constant input triggers constant reaction. Limiting input restores emotional control. Emotional control strengthens presence. Presence commands respect without demand. Protecting your time, energy, and attention is not about isolation. It is about intention. It is choosing quality over quantity. It is investing rather than spending. It is understanding that every moment, every interaction, every focus shapes who you become. When these resources are guarded with discipline and awareness, life becomes deliberate, balanced, and grounded, allowing you to operate from strength rather than depletion, from choice rather than compulsion, from self-respect rather than self-sacrifice. Creating inner silence to strengthen clarity is a powerful practice in a world filled with constant noise, stimulation, and mental overload. Inner silence is not the absence of sound, but the absence of mental clutter. It is a state where thoughts no longer compete for attention and emotions no longer demand immediate reaction. Without inner silence, the mind becomes crowded, reactive, and restless, making it difficult to think clearly or act intentionally. Clarity cannot exist in chaos. When the mind is constantly occupied by notifications, opinions, worries, and comparisons, decision-making becomes distorted. Inner silence restores order. It allows you to hear your own thoughts without interference and recognize what truly matters beneath the noise. Creating this silence requires discipline and awareness. It begins with reducing unnecessary input. Constant consumption of information overwhelms the mind and weakens focus. Silence is created when space is intentionally protected. This space allows reflection, insight, and emotional balance to emerge naturally. Inner silence strengthens self-awareness. When external noise fades, internal patterns become visible. You begin to notice recurring thoughts, emotional triggers, and mental habits that influence behavior. Awareness gives choice. Without awareness, reactions feel automatic. With awareness, responses become deliberate. Silence also regulates emotion. Many emotional reactions are amplified by overstimulation. When the mind is quiet, emotions settle. Calmness replaces urgency. This calmness strengthens confidence because decisions are no longer driven by impulse or fear. Inner silence also improves focus. A quiet mind can sustain attention without strain. Tasks are approached with presence rather than distraction. This presence enhances quality and efficiency. Work becomes intentional rather than rushed. Silence also sharpens intuition. Intuition is subtle and easily drowned out by noise. When the mind is still, intuition becomes clear. This clarity supports decision-making aligned with values rather than external pressure. Creating inner silence also reduces comparison. Much insecurity is fueled by constant exposure to others' lives, opinions, and achievements. Silence breaks this cycle. Without comparison, identity stabilizes. Self-worth becomes internal. Inner silence also supports emotional resilience. When the mind is quiet, challenges are processed rather than resisted. Stress is managed with awareness rather than avoidance. Silence allows thoughts to pass without attachment. This detachment creates emotional strength. Creating inner silence does not require isolation. It requires intention. Silence can exist in activity when the mind is focused. It is cultivated through presence, controlled attention, and conscious pauses. Moments of stillness throughout the day retrain the nervous system. Over time, the mind learns to rest rather than constantly seek stimulation. This rest restores energy. Energy supports discipline. Discipline sustains growth. Inner silence also improves communication. When the mind is clear, speech becomes intentional. Words are chosen carefully. Listening deepens. Relationships improve because interactions are grounded rather than reactive. Silence also enhances self-respect. Choosing stillness over noise is choosing clarity over confusion. It is a statement that your mind is valuable and deserves protection. Over time, inner silence becomes a refuge. It is a place of stability regardless of external chaos. From this place, clarity guides action. Decisions become simpler. Priorities become obvious. Doubt loses strength. Inner silence becomes the foundation for focus, discipline, and self-trust, allowing life to be lived with intention rather than reaction, depth rather than distraction, clarity rather than confusion.